speaker number 14. Now, Sara comes from a long ways because she has to come all the way from the desert, so she's not been able to come too often in the last year. But you have the toughest job of all the speech titles that I read here. You have the toughest job of giving a speech of anybody that is speaking tonight, because no one probably wants to take free advice. Free advice for a topic. Sara Cardella.
Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, I know that you all would like some free advice, and so I'm going to attempt to give you some today. In the professional world that I live in, we have many, many discussions about what is a mentor and what is a coach. And let me tell you, everybody has a different opinion. And no matter what you think, no matter what you declare, it doesn't matter, because you still believe that the mentor-coach's job is to give advice, right? And the mentee's job is to listen. And so you think that the mentor, coach, know better than you do, so you listen to them. Always, right? Oh, you're not believing me yet. Okay. Well, I did some research on giving advice. And I ran into Charles E. McKenzie. He is a U.S. representative from Louisiana in 1915. And he looked at advice 3 different ways. The first way is free advice. The second way is how is the advice like a mushroom. And the third way is what do you do when you ignore advice? Being that Mr. McKenzie is from Louisiana, and I have a quote from him, he probably sounded like this: free advice is way overpriced. Okay, so when have you taken free advice? Anybody ever heard of grandma advice? This is when the person gives you advice that you didn't ask for. That's grandma advice. So, when I was in my 20s and young and sexy and thin and all this stuff, I met a gentleman who was tall, dark, and handsome. In fact, he was movie star handsome. So I brought him to a family reunion one day, and we got there. We're at the, not the reunion, but just a family event. We are there, and all of a sudden my arm gets pulled, and my brother says, in a whisper, loud enough for everybody in the room to hear, "Sara, Sara, he's not the marrying kind. He's too handsome." What? I just wanted to have a little fun. I wasn't worried about marriage. Mr. McKenzie also tells us that advice is like a mushroom. The wrong kind can prove fatal. So when you think about this, have you ever taken mushroom advice from anybody? Like maybe you wanted to buy a car and your best friend told you, "Hey, this is the car to buy," and you buy it and it's a lemon? That would be mushroom advice. In my world, I was offered the HR director position at Eagle Mountain Casino in Porterville, California, a Native American casino. I was so excited and terrified, and I was very hesitant. So I called my coach, I called my mentor, I called relatives, I called everybody I could. They all said to me, "Sara, this is perfect. This is the next step in your career." Well, it was the most miserable 14 months of my life. I went from the most positive job in the world, a corporate trainer, to the most miserable job in the world, firing people. This was not me. So Mr. McKenzie also started to think about advice, and he decided this. Advice is a pleasure to give. It is humiliating to need it. But it's normal to ignore it. So have you ever ignored somebody's advice? Is there anything that you can say, like maybe that person, you should have listened to them? Then you've ignored advice. In my world, it was 1992. I had just finished all my courses for my master's degree, and my girlfriend and I decided, we were exhausted, and we were going to take a month off and go to Alaska. And so we did, only we were camping. Well, this then presented a problem. Camping, there's not much water, and I have this stringy, yucky hair that just isn't going to do anything. And I didn't want to get it cut like a boy for a month and walk around, so I said I'm going to get it permanent. Everybody went, no, don't get it permanent. Well, I used to be a hairdresser, and I can tell you I know how to give permanents that are just soft waves. That's all. And so I went and had the permanent, and it came out like a nice, soft afro. To this day, I will not show anybody a picture of me from that trip. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're probably thinking, I'm going to tell you don't take advice or anything like that. I know I'm not. I'm going to tell you, please, take advice, because it's just a person's opinion. Now, notice I said opinion. It is not free advice, it's not mushroom advice, and it's not ignored advice. It's just an opinion. To listen to an opinion is very wise. To not listen is foolish. And the person who told me this was Bruce Lee, the great martial arts person, who said, a wise man can get more from a foolish question than a fool can from a wise answer. Mr. Toastmaster.